Now, have you ever heard of therapy-based talk show? These shows right here and these slimeballs right here, Dr Phil, Jeremy Kyle and all the others like them, you've most likely seen them on some god-awful TV station which you've never watched in your life, which makes you question why you even pay that TV license. But basically, the concept is, they'll bring in a load of vulnerable people, they'll put them in a room and say, hey, we're going to help you out, we are going to help you out, and basically, they turn them into a complete and utter mockery in the name of mental health and millions of dollars. Disclaimer, this video was made under fair use. All clips in this video have been creatively transformed by using it for critical commentary. Do not take what I say as fact and only as an opinion in this video. This is my mere opinion on Dr. Phil and the handling of his show and my overall beliefs of what is going on in this situation. Thank you. Ah yes, mental illness. I'm a big long-term subscriber of the Mentally Ill YouTube channel. It's been a long time since I first subbed to mentallyill.co.uk. It's been a really long time. Dad, please come back. But alas, hello my beautiful dumplings and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all having a splendid day. Now in today's video we are going to be discussing a rather famous bald man. And no, not me in 6 years time, no. We're going to be discussing the king of exploitation himself, Dr. Phil. Sorry, I need to take that breather. I'm speaking really fast. It's not usually like that. Dr. Phil. Yes, the Dr. Phil Show. I'm sure you've all heard about this show. The show which is apparently designed to help people out there and pull them together and really solve and fix their issues. Let me give you an example of the Dr. Phil Show.
Shoot.
Todd, Dr. Phil.
Hi, I'm Todd. Nice to meet you.
How you feeling, man? Can you walk?
Barely. I have to have help.
This is Todd Herzog, a vulnerable man who went onto the show Dr. Phil because he was an alcoholic and he really just wanted to seek help. A vulnerable and brave guy who's facing an extremely serious addiction. I genuinely wish nothing but the best for this bloke, but what actually happened when he came onto the Dr. Phil show? Well, he claimed to have gone into the dressing room and found a bottle of vodka. Yes, the team apparently just left out a bottle of vodka, knowing an alcoholic was going to come on the show, and now he sadly did drink this bottle of vodka, and apparently the people who ran the show found out about this, and how they decided to help him was a bit of a unique way. Instead of saying, oh, you probably shouldn't go on this show, they decided to give him Xanax, apparently, and then they brought him onto the show by carrying him.
Right.
Sorry, I'm very...
That's all right. Brandon, why don't you get over there and take Debbie's spot?
Right.
Yeah, I'll go.
This is not a man that should be on an entertainment-based talk show. This is not a man who should be being put in front of millions of people. Because this video got 6 million views. 6 million views saw this person in this state and they laughed. They were entertained by it. Because let's not forget, people, these shows, the Jeremy Kyle show, the Dr. Phil show, they are ultimately created to create profit, to get an income, to make millions of dollars by exploiting the vulnerable. Now after this episode, a lot of serious claims were made about how the show actually damages people's health after they go on it. So yes, that is my wonderful introduction to the Dr. Phil Show, which is, you guessed it, ran by Dr. Phil.
Thank you for that.
Well, actually, is he a doctor? Kind of, I guess, but he doesn't actually have a license to carry out his practice. Oh no! So yes, Dr. Phil, also known as Philip Calvin McGraw, is not licensed to carry out his psychology-based practices. But the thing is, he was never licensed to carry out these practices in California, where the show is actually filmed. And that makes me think this show is basically just a parody of pretending to get people help in the name of mental health. And now, to be honest with you, I've never understood the appeal and acceptance of these shows where they offer basic therapy at the cost of basically becoming a joke in front of millions of people on an international scale. Take Jeremy Kyle, for example, the exact same version of the show, but just in Great Britain, and a little bit worse. Basically, this show was shut down after somebody, I'm just going to put a little warning here, this is a trigger warning, skip 20 seconds ahead if you don't want to hear this. Somebody took their own life, which is obviously terrible, but it was at the result of basically being humiliated by going on the Jeremy Kyle show. I get them mixed up because they are basically the exact same thing. Two people from two different countries exploiting the vulnerable. It very much seems to me that some executives out there will see some vulnerable people, some people that can't exactly possibly afford help or afford therapy, because in America, for example, you know, these things cost a lot of money because the public healthcare system over there is absolutely terrible, but we won't get into that today. But they see these people struggling, and they say, hey, would you like a little bit of fame? Would you like a little bit of basic therapy? Well, come on to our show and we'll humiliate you, and in 4 years' time you'll look at this show and think, wow, they humiliated me, that was basically awful. Because that is what happens with this show. So many people have come out afterwards saying they've had a terrible experience with the Dr. Phil show, and as I said earlier, he is not even licensed to carry out these practices in California because his license ran out in 2006, which makes me think this show is a bit of a fraud and purposely designed for entertainment where they exploit the vulnerable. And now you have most definitely seen a few of the guests that have actually become famous from this show. A prime example of that is Danielle Bregoli, at the time a 13-year-old girl who had a lot of troubles with her mother, and she went on the show in a very famous interview of the whole "catch me outside, how about that?" Personally, never understood why that was such a meme, but it became a meme in an incredibly awkward interview.
Were you and your mom close when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Do you love your mother?
Yes. Oh, here go the waterworks.
Do you want her to be happy?
Yes.
Where's your father in all this?
I don't know.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw him?
I don't remember.
Does he have another family? Did you ask to meet that family?
I don't even need to. I don't want to, and I don't need to.
Have you been hurt along the way? Has somebody in your life hurt you? Has somebody in your life taken advantage of you, done something to you that you couldn't fight
Nope.
back?
Ironically enough, being taken advantage is actually the main topic of the discussion today, because Danielle Bregoli recently did come out and expose Dr. Phil and speak up about the issues with the Dr. Phil show, and we will be discussing that today. But before we go any further, I do just want to ask the question of, how was this seen as socially acceptable in 2016? They brought a girl and her mother, a 13-year-old girl, onto TV where she cried. She clearly was going through something. She clearly had personal issues with herself and with her relationship with her mother, and that was allowed to be broadcasted to millions for entertainment by a guy who isn't even licensed to carry out these practices. Please can somebody tell me, who for some reason is a Dr. Phil stan, how that is moral, how that is a moral form of treatment? Because in my opinion, it isn't. Danielle Bregoli even came onto the show afterwards and basically just beefed with Dr. Phil and said, your show is only famous because of me.
What's good about it?
Well, I guess what's good for you is I made you just like how Oprah made you. You were nothing before I came on this show.
Thank you for that.
Now at the time, a lot of people were thinking, wow, what a rude thing for some kid to say. Yeah, what a rude thing for a 14-year-old girl to say. Who would have thought a 14-year-old girl would be rude? Who would have thought children are rude, man? It's just absolutely unbelievable to me. And this is the thing. A lot of people have defended the Dr. Phil show because of Danielle Bregoli's actions. They've seen the actions of a child and used that as some form of excuse to defend the exploitation of children on the show, and in general, the vulnerable of the show. And we will get into that. I do have proof of that from a terrible response from Dr. Phil on some news show. It was god-awful, and we will get into that, but I want to go through the timeline of what has actually happened in this situation with Danielle Bregoli. But also, can we just admit that Danielle Bregoli actually wasn't wrong about making the Dr. Phil show famous? I actually pulled up the analytics from 2017, which was the era of Danielle Bregoli on the show, and it's very clear from this graph that her exploitation made this show incredibly popular, and it is still at decent levels after that. And that brings us on to the terrible story which has recently come out about Dr. Phil, but at the same time it kind of hasn't, because there have actually been plenty of allegations before this, but have only really come to light because somebody famous spoke about it. It brings us on to Turnabout Ranch. But before we go any further, I do just want to give another warning because we are going to be discussing topics and themes of abuse.
I'm a huge believer in Turnabout Ranch. I've worked in other adolescent programs, and I think Turnabout Ranch really encompasses a lot of the benefits of a lot of different treatment styles.
At Turnabout Ranch, therapy, academics, and hard work come together to impart lasting and powerful change in teens. Real ranch, real values, real change. Yeah, they also failed to miss out the part about severe allegations of abuse at Turnabout Ranch. It's interesting that they left that bit out, isn't it? It is very interesting. Now, if you're wondering what this has to do with the Dr. Phil show, basically Turnabout Ranch is where people on the show are sent to after they go on the Dr. Phil show. I guess to reform, become a better person. But to be honest with you, I don't know how cleaning up horse shit and going on 3-day desert walks as punishment is necessarily meant to make you a better human being.
So tell me about Turnabout Ranch.
It's a program.
Yeah. How did you do there?
Fine.
What was your favorite part of it?
Chief.
Yeah. You like the horse? Shane, how'd you think she did?
I thought she did very well. I really saw a difference in the way that she was acting, but also the way that she led and was an example to the other girls.
Now this is Danielle Bregoli again when she was much younger. This is after her experience with Turnabout Ranch, and as you can see, she seems to be a little bit awkward and maybe a little bit uncomfortable, and there is a reason to that.
A young lady, her name is Hannah, she recently spoke out because while she was there, she was sexually assaulted, and then when she reported that she was assaulted, she was punished by staff. Now, when I seen the punishment she was given, I knew like, okay, I really have to say something. Like, I really have to have her back on this because I truly believe that they did that. So, Dr. Phil, I am going to give you from now till April 5th to issue an apology, not only to me, but to Hannah and any other child that you sent to Turnabout or any other program like this. And if you don't, I'm gonna handle things my way.
So yeah, there have been a lot of allegations about severe levels of abuse that has happened at Turnabout Ranch. And Turnabout Ranch, as Danielle Bregoli just said, is a place where there basically is no technology given to you, so it's really hard to record these crimes or get any real forms of genuine evidence against them. But also, there have been a large amount of allegations, even going back to 2015, before this was a massive topic. So I very much feel like there is no smoke without fire, and we will go through all of this, and Dr. Phil actually speaking about Danielle Bregoli's negative experience. But recently, a lawsuit against Turnabout Ranch came out, and it alleged repeated sexual abuse. Hannah Akaluta was 17 years old when she was brought into the ranch in October 2019 after appearing on the Dr. Phil show. She claims she was sexually assaulted by a male staff member 10 days after she arrived, but did not report the incident because of fear of retaliation, according to the lawsuit. And now I fully understand, a lot of freaks are going to come into my comment section and say, oh, why did she not speak about it when it actually happened? Like the brain doesn't cover up trauma when you've been abused, because that's something that happens when you suffer abuse. A lot of people don't realize it happens until a few years later. I've spoken about this in previous videos, but your brain really tries to help you when you've got severe levels of trauma. It almost goes to a level where it convinces you that some things didn't happen when they really did, and you only realise that a few years later when you come to terms with things, or just in general when you realise some of the behaviour that happened to you was not right, it was completely immoral, and it was abuse. But also in this case, it seems that Hannah was genuinely in fear of what happened, because she actually did try to tell the people at the ranch what happened, and they called her a liar. And as Danielle Bregoli states, it's a pretty scary place to be.
They just take them, they handcuff them, they put them in the car. It's basically like kidnapping. We got there, I got out of the car, and I just seen it looked like nothing. It was just super dark. I seen like all the circles and stuff, and I seen the little cabin, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not built for this. Like, I'm this little bougie ass. So for the first 3 days you're there, is no showering. They put you in a circle, which is it's a teepee. It's a little teepee, but it's open, and you have to sit there for 3 days. They wouldn't let me lay down for nothing. Like, I was falling asleep, and they were like, get up. So I'm just sitting here, like, this is gonna be really bad. When I seen these people have no sympathy, I was like, oh, I'm really doomed. They strip you from your whole personality. You have to act like just whoever they want you to act like. They told me, okay, these are what your chores are gonna be. I don't remember what they were, but they were like, these are what your chores are gonna be. This is what you're gonna be doing. Here's your level 1 binder. You do the same thing every day, chop wood, take care of the animals. This place is all about taking away privileges. Like, okay, yeah, the phone is a privilege, TV, like all that, but they take away like necessity privileges, like sleeping on a bed, eating good food, not being cold. If you reported another kid like getting bullied by like their peers or something, they would just say, well, maybe that's what they need, or like something like that. Even though there was written rules, if a staff was angry at the moment, or if you just did something that they felt was bad, you would get your own punishment. Like, they would make up their own punishment.
Now, in my opinion, the whole Turnabout Ranch thing was merely this place used by Dr. Phil as some form of weird justification to bring these vulnerable people onto his show and exploit them, but then he could say, well, you're going to a ranch afterwards, you're going to this nice place where you'll get help, when in reality, it's clearly not that. Not allowing somebody to shower for multiple days is abuse. This whole place seems incredibly sus. There are a lot of bad things which have clearly happened here, and these allegations are genuinely quite horrific. But also, there was a very disturbing news report that came out in 2016 where a worker was actually murdered by somebody who was trying to escape the ranch. And now, I'm not justifying what happened there. That is obviously a completely wrong and a horrific thing. But at the same time, how does it get to that point? How does it get to the level of where somebody is trying to escape? Somebody like Danielle Bregoli, does she seem like a threat, this 13-year-old girl? Does she seem like she's going to harm people? In my opinion, no. Does she need to be locked up on some ranch? Of course not. Of course not. But for some reason, that happened, and people were trying to escape, and it resulted in horrific things, and you just have to ask the question of why. I mean, based on the people that went to the ranch, this place just seems like a complete and utter prison.
Reflection is the punishment. When you do something so bad, or if you do anything that ticks them off, you have to go in reflection. You walk in the arena for hours on end. You sit outside in the cold on the floor. You have to pick up piles in a wheelbarrow of horse shit, and they want big piles. So if you have to do 25 piles, you're really doing like 50 wheelbarrows. So while I was there, just a lot of crazy things happened. I seen a kid get held down for trying to leave. Just honestly, I don't think he was trying to run away. I think he was just trying to like walk out the door and just like get some time to himself, and they restrained him, they held him down. They had no problem holding kids down, which is against the law. You're not supposed to touch the kids, but they had no problem doing that. It's just our word against the staff's word when you're there, because there's no witnesses, there's no cameras, you don't have a phone, there's none of that. That's why I was always so scared to speak out, because it's like, no one's gonna believe me.
And I think this is one of the major talking points that we need to speak about here. The whole point of mischaracterizing people that went on the Dr. Phil show. Because people like Danielle Bregoli, for example, people who went on the show who were vulnerable and seemed as maybe a little bit bratty, have been characterized to be villains. Because let's not get this wrong, people. The Dr. Phil show is not a help show, it's an entertainment show. So they characterize the people that come onto the show, for the most part, as villains. You've got to have a hero, who in this case is meant to be Dr. Phil, the beacon of light, the beacon of the hero of the story. And then you've got the big evil 13-year-old girl, Danielle Bregoli. And with that characterization, people take that and they hear the things they say and they no longer believe it because they've bought into this characterization. And in my opinion, this is a thing that's happened for years now. People haven't taken Danielle Bregoli and people that have gone onto the show seriously because they've been characterized by the showrunners as villains.
You sit outside in the cold on the floor. You have to pick up piles in a wheelbarrow of horse shit, and they want big piles. So if you have to do 25 piles, you're really doing like 50 wheelbarrows.
Can anybody tell me how this is positive reinforcement for children? Can somebody explain to me? Dr. Phil, can you explain to me how this is meant to help somebody? How this is meant to make them reform and become a better human being? Because I'd really like to know how shoveling shit for an entire day is meant to make somebody a better person. For me personally, it'd probably make me more of a dickhead. It'd probably make me hate the people there because I'm being made to do these terrible things because I've had a little bit of a, bad upbringing. But people, their first thought in their mind is to, maybe we should actually give them therapy and actually help them out mentally. Their first thought is physical labor. That's abuse. I'm sorry, that is. I see a lot of TikToks going around recently being like, oh, beating your kids, for example, that's not abuse, that's just discipline.
If you spank your kids with a belt, that's called abuse.
When I was 6 years old, I swallowed a penny. My parents saw it and proceeded to spank me. You know what I never did again? I never swallowed another penny. It's not abuse, Buttercup. Harden up, you softy.
But the whole thing of physical abuse is discipline? One of the weirdest and most stupid arguments, in my opinion. If you're physically disciplining somebody, you are abusing them. And as I said earlier, one of the survivors in this situation, Hannah, claimed that she was sexually assaulted by a staff member and was called a liar when she went to the other staff members about this. She also stated that she was abused as being weak, manipulative, pathetic, and stupid. Now, I would just like to ask the question of how somebody who, bearing in mind is 17 years old, could manipulate an entire team of specialists who are meant to help children, people who are vulnerable, and people that need clear help. How is this 17-year-old girl, this child, meant to manipulate this whole team? It seems like these people were creating excuses to justify their terrible behavior. And now, as I said earlier, this really isn't a situation which has just come out of nowhere. If you search abuse and Turnabout Ranch, there are a lot of people's experiences posted all around the internet dating back to 2015. Now, I don't know if all of these are true, but I do have to ask the question of why are there so many stories out there before this even became a massive situation claiming to basically have the exact same experience that a lot of people out there have had themselves. I found a very disturbing post from 2017 where somebody said they visited the ranch and they had something called the Desert Walk as a punishment. Basically, they followed this routine for 3 days of where they just walked through, I guess, a supposed desert where they were only fed an apple, a peanut butter sandwich, and water. This was in 2015. I have to ask the question of why would that be there when at the time there really wasn't many questions about Dr. Phil. There wasn't many big people speaking out against him. Sure, there was a few, but not to the level of what it's become in 2021. I really think that there is no smoke without fire here. But yeah, after all of these allegations and stories, it brings us on to Dr. Phil's terrible response, in which they immediately try to mischaracterize Danielle Bregoli's allegations based on her actions of a 13-year-old girl.
Her real name is Danielle Bregoli, and she's saying, I want an apology from Dr. Phil, and if I don't get an apology by some date, I'm going to handle it my own way. She says that I was on his show 5 years ago, and I was recommended to go off to this boot camp, and they were abusive at this boot camp. I want to play this, the soundbite from your show so everybody knows who this person is and what she was like at 13 years old. Her mom brought her on the show to say, I can't handle her anymore. So here's that moment off your show.
And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience, that they're laughing at her.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep. Catch me outside, how about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside, how about that?
Catch you outside? What does that mean?
What I just said.
catch her outside and she'll go outside and do what she has to do. That's what she's talking about.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Boy, I had a vague recollection of that young. And by the way, let's remind everyone, that was 13. Not sure how I would have handled that 13-year-old if she were my 13-year-old.
You're not sure how you could have handled that? Handled what? A 13-year-old behaving badly? Oh yes, that's an extremely rare thing. 13-year-olds, they never act up. They're never bad with their behaviour, are they? That's a complete rare thing, isn't it? Shut up. I'm usually not this rude, but just shut up. Just shut up. And it's clear Dr. Phil is complicit, given with how much he's smiling throughout the whole thing and outright not denying anything, and if anything, being completely complicit.
But let's talk about her and what she's now doing in her accusations. She says that the place that she was recommended to go was abusive to her, wouldn't let her sleep. What are your responses to her?
Well, you know, she went to Turnabout 4 or 5 years ago, and if she had a bad experience, you know, obviously I would hate that. We'd be sorry about that, but we don't have anything to do with what happens with guests once they leave the stage. I mean, that's between the guardian and the parent and whatever facility they go to. So we're not involved in that. We don't have any feedback from them. So whatever happens once they're there, that's between them and the facility. I assume she had a problem. She filed a complaint with the proper authorities or something 5 years ago. So I really don't know much about it.
Now, Dr. Phil, in my opinion, is basically suggesting that his show have no affiliation with Turnabout Ranch, which confuses me because when you go onto Turnabout Ranch's website, they have a whole section dedicated to the fact that they feature frequently on the Dr. Phil show. And also, it's not like this can be denied because in one of Danielle Bregoli's episode, one of the people from Turnabout Ranch are on the episode.
Shane, how do you think she did?
I thought she did very well. I really saw a difference in the way that she was acting, but also the way that she led and was an example to the other girls.
So it confuses me how there's no affiliation there, and despite the many allegations of abuse, these people have been on the show and even brag about frequently being on the show. I mean, I even found a video going back to 2010 on the Dr. Phil channel about Turnabout Ranch. It's really confusing to me if there's really no connection between them.
Being here helped me find happiness.
When Elena first arrived here, she was very resistant.
I mean, I even found a clip of him thanking Turnabout Ranch.
And I'm scared that that is gonna happen again.
But I'm sending her away too. And nobody's ever done that before, right?
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll go.
All right. I want to thank all of my guests today, and a special thanks to Kristen Hayes from Turnabout Ranch, and thanks to Mike Montreal and Safe Interventions. They are the best of the best when it comes to transporting teens. Also, thanks to Miles Adcox and Onsite for offering to put all of this together to help Teresa.
I mean, I basically feel like I'm exposing Dr. Phil for lying at this point because I found another clip on Dr. Phil's channel which speaks about what Danielle Bregoli spoke about with when the people come at 3 AM to take them to the Dr. Phil show, and it is incredibly creepy.
Well, it's just after 3:30 in the morning. We're down the street from the family home. We've been texting with April and she's ready for us to come. It's a big day for Annalisa. She's on her way to the Dr. Phil show.
Honey, wake up. I love you. We decided to get you some help, and we're going to the Dr. Phil.
So I do just find it a little bit weird that Dr. Phil pretends or acts like he has no affiliation with Turnabout Ranch, when the reality is there are so many clips on the Dr. Phil YouTube channel which show that there is a clear affiliation between Dr. Phil and Turnabout Ranch. I don't know why he is pretending like there isn't.
We don't have anything to do with what happens with guests once they leave the stage. I mean, that's between the guardian and the parent and whatever facility they go to. So we're not involved in that. We don't have any feedback from them. So special thanks to Kristen Hayes from Turnabout Ranch.
So the real question is why were you still affiliated with this show after all the allegations? And I refuse to believe you guys don't have a research team. I think if you don't actually have one, that is mental, and you need to have this whole operation shut down because it shows how careless you guys are. But at the same time, I believe you do. I just don't think you guys care. I mean, does this seem like a very remorseful person to you?
So there's the other issue, is like when you have a child like that who is incorrigible. I mean, I just watched that behavior and I thought, wow, first of all, calling a group of people you don't know who are mostly your elders a bunch of hoes, and then saying, catch me outside, how about that? Meaning I'm going to beat you up outside. We didn't even show the part of the clip where she came at her mom on the stage because her mom said she was mouthy. You know, what do you do with young people like that? What else is there but some tough love, you know, at a ranch or where else?
Tough love, also known as the code word that adults love to use to justify child abuse. Please do not mischaracterize somebody based on their actions of a 13-year-old and then justify the abuse by saying it's tough love. I am so tired of adults, grown adults with real functioning brains who are on news shows saying, oh yeah, abuse is tough love. I'm sorry, but a 3-day desert walk, shoveling shit for a day, that's not tough love. That's just abuse. That's not causing discipline. Why can we not discipline people with our verbal actions? Why can we not say, hey, that thing you're doing is very bad. Now, I'm going to take the internet away from you for a day. I feel like that's fine. But shoveling shit for a day? That's a little bit weird. And now after this, Dr. Phil doesn't go on to deny any of the things about tough love being needed, and he only then goes on to speak about her experience briefly, saying that it would be bad if it happened, I guess, and then the woman just continues to be terrible.
It's not easy in this day and time. There's social media influences, fast-paced life. Kids grow up really fast these days.
You know what, Phil? I got to tell you, the more I hear from teachers and coaches and other parents of the behavior of kids at school. I mean, I thought it was shocking when a teacher told me, 5 or 6 years ago, that the kids regularly drop F-bombs at the teacher, telling them to F this and F you and all the rest. And that's normal. And now my kids who are in middle school and high school say it is normal. How did we get to this point where you're allowed, A, to drop an F-bomb anywhere if you're a kid, and B, that you're allowed to do that to a teacher?
Well, you know, it's just a lack of consequences. And I think teachers are modern day heroes. I think they spend more time with our children sometimes than we do, because they spend, 8 to 3:30 with our kids, probably 40% of their waking hours. But there's a lack of consequences. These children are really with adults that are hamstrung on terms of what they can do.
Now, in fairness, Dr. Phil does go on to say that he believes people should be given therapy classes and counselling classes, and that's great, but I don't understand, because this is all in relation to Turnabout Ranch and the physical abuse that has allegedly happened there. So why are you bringing up the argument of consequences in this debate? There is no consequences with these allegations, because if you're saying consequences in regards to this situation, in my opinion, I am only hearing a justification for physical abuse. Discipline can be taught without physical abuse. Physically abusing somebody to not do something, that's not discipline. Discipline is when you have respect for people and you understand that certain actions are wrong. Physically abusing somebody so they don't do something is installing fear into their mind. You are putting fear into somebody so they don't do something. That's not discipline. That is bullying. That is abuse. Discipline is when somebody actually wants to respect you and understands you cannot do something because it's wrong. Not because oh, I'm scared if I do that thing, I'm going to receive some form of physical punishment. To me, it almost seems that these people are sat here trying to justify the abuse that has allegedly happened at Turnabout Ranch. And that is absolutely disgusting. These people are taking serious allegations about sexual abuse and turning it into a conversation about disciplining children who need to face consequences. These two aren't the same thing. Sexual abuse and a kid needing discipline are not the same thing. I mean, no wonder this guy doesn't have his license anymore. Like, no wonder. He clearly is terrible when it comes to handling real scandals like this. I think this is an absolutely disgusting response, and it is a clear mischaracterization of somebody on purpose that they basically discredit what they're saying. Hannah said previously that she was afraid of retaliation, and now these people are attacking children and speaking about the need of consequences after these people actually spoke up about their own personal experiences. How does that bode well for people that suffer abuse in places like Hollywood, in places like this, just in general? How does that bode well that you are basically just completely ignoring somebody's story and saying, oh, it's tough love? I think that's a terrible example to set, and it really shows that, in my opinion, Dr. Phil and this newscaster simply don't care. But as I said earlier, this isn't the first time that Dr. Phil has been called out for his shady behaviour. In 2016, for example, he was criticised by multiple celebrities for exploiting the actress Shelley Duvall in this interview.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, The Shining's Shelley Duvall, from red carpet to near recluse.
I loved Robin Williams. I don't think he's dead.
Where do you think he is?
Shape-shifting.
Do you see him?
Has, yes.
Her failing health and unusual beliefs.
The man who's threatening me is the sheriff of Nottingham. I think there's a whirring disc inside me.
A woman forgotten by the world, in need of help.
I need to get the Bermuda Triangle off of me.
Right.
Because I don't want a hairy chest.
Shelley, will you let me get you to the doctor so you can get checked out?
I'm very sick. I need help.
Well, that's why I'm here.
This woman clearly acknowledges that she needs help, but she has been brought onto the Dr. Phil show. And yes, I understand that it's a two-way thing. It's not like these people are forced onto the show, but in my opinion, you are very much taking advantage of somebody who may not be in the right state of mind. They are vulnerable, and you are allowing them to come onto your show. Dr. Phil, you have the responsibility to see somebody who clearly isn't well, clearly acknowledges it, and says, hey, don't come on here, because it is going to be viewed by millions and people are going to make a mockery of you. You have the responsibility to do that, but I know you don't, and you don't care because you are only in this for the money and the millions of dollars. This is a dramatization of mental health, and Dr. Phil even says, do you want me to get you a doctor?
Shelley, will you let me get you to the doctor so you can get checked out?
And yeah, that basically just is him admitting that he's not equipped for this. He's not somebody that should be handling this, and that she should not be on this show because it's dangerous, it's wrong, and it's overall just immoral. As I said earlier, in 2017, Todd Herzog went on the show and claimed that he drank a bottle of vodka, and then to solve that, he was given Xanax and was carried onto the show.
Shoot.
Todd, Dr. Phil.
Hi, I'm Todd. Nice to meet you.
How you feeling, man? Can you walk?
Barely. I have to have help.
He should not be on this show. He should be getting professional help. This isn't professional help. This is being made a mockery out of in front of millions. This should not be allowed. And also in 2016, there were claims and a lawsuit from an ex-staffer of Dr. Phil stating that she suffered emotional distress when she was apparently falsely imprisoned at a meeting during which Dr. Phil yelled profanities and threatened employees for leaking information. Yes, a lot of these things are just claims, but at the end of the day, how can there be this much smoke without fire over the last 10 years? I really don't understand how it can all just not be a real thing. And also, even if all of the claims were false, at the end of the day, I completely and vehemently disagree with the fundamentals of this show. This show should not be taking advantage of clear, vulnerable people that need help and making it some dramatization and some entertainment show. This should not be allowed. This is completely wrong in my opinion. I do just want to say, to conclude this video, I don't think Dr. Phil cares about anyone that goes on this show. I think this guy is a fraud, somebody that just wants to make an easy bag, an easy $1 million. But I do just want to say, to all of the people, to all of the survivors who have been on this show and faced terrible experiences, I really hope you get the justice that you deserve, and I really hope that things just work out in general. It's insane to me that newscasters are mischaracterizing people based on their actions from a long time ago when they were a kid. I don't understand how that's happening or how it's allowed to happen, but I guess it's just the world of Hollywood at the end of the day. But that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for coming along. I would really appreciate it if you like this video, get it into the algorithm, 30,000 likes, and please subscribe to the channel. And trying to get to 1 million subs, I would really appreciate it. But that is the end of the video. If you want more updates from me, my Twitter is inumber69. I make terrible tweets, but, you know, we have a good time. And yeah, thank you so much for coming along. I've been me, you've been you. Goodbye. Is this my new intro? No, it's not. Take it easy, people. Love you very much. Goodbye. Have a nice evening.